wanted to start with this picture. I was speaking to one of our friends from Thales yesterday about Swedish words that have been exported abroad, words like ombudsman and smörgåsbord. And sadly, this is not one of those words. But I'm sure that one of our northerner friends from Tieto, perhaps, can explain to anyone who's confused about what this means in one of the breaks. It's basically that you're all going to be in a coma here, a lunch coma, and I need to deal with that. So I've decided to keep this session very light and extremely exciting for you. And I'll finish off with a film, which always helps with both adults and children. So... So you've heard the previous speakers talk about things like the fourth industrial revolution, disruptive new technologies, even technologies that are not here yet but are coming in the next 20 years or so. But Verisec, as you know, is in the business of security, and my job is to sell that security. So it's interesting for me, at least, to understand where does security fit in, and can security keep up with this rapid pace of evolving technology that we're surrounded by. So I want to kick off with an example that is current, that is from this week. It's a phishing attack against one of the Swedish banks, one of the larger banks. It's not an uncommon attack; it happens all the time. It's nothing specific to this bank. And basically what it says for you internationals in the audience is that your credit card is temporarily inactive. Hi, your credit card has been blocked due to a technical problem. To reactivate it, authenticate by clicking here. So you click there, obviously, and it tells you to enter your credit card details and some other personal information. And you should have seen the police officer who was interviewed on TV the other day when this came out. He couldn't have given up more on trying to fight this type of crime. He basically said it's impossible. It's not the work of innocent Swedes. It's the Russians. Obviously, it's always the Russians. And his main focus was to say that it's about educating the users not to click on that link. And they're doing their job, their bit, educating the population, and the banks are doing the same, and it's still not helping, and way too many people are clicking on that link. Yeah, exactly. So you should click there. And please do next time. So this highlights some problems that I will be talking about in this presentation. And one, of course, is that people click on this link. So user behavior is a problem, has been a problem for many years. And to be fair, the banks have been fighting with this for many years. So it seems that people just won't learn. That's one big issue. And we'll come back to why that's a problem in today's world. But also, to me, it feels like this is not a very good design of a solution if it allows the gullible users to give up their secrets. It makes it possible for gullible users to give up their secrets. So the question is, could you build a system where it's not possible for the user to give up their security credentials? Because that's not available to the user. Could you do that in payments? Could you do that in the world of digital identities? And the answer, of course, is yes, because that was a rhetorical question, and we build solutions to do this. But it's a problem that we're facing on a daily basis today, that this is still around everywhere around us. A third problem with this is that banks, in Sweden at least, will no longer communicate with their customers via these channels. So they won't communicate with customers via SMS and email because they know that on the one hand they're telling their customers not to click on these links, so it wouldn't make any sense to communicate via that channel to customers. Just in the past 2 weeks, I've spoken to 2 banks who have said that their primary way of proactively communicating with customers is via the physical post. So they will send letters to their customers via physical post, and that doesn't really feel like the strategic choice for any organization that wants to be active in the information age of today. So these are some of the issues we're faced by. Now, we've been around in this industry for many years, so and to be fair, I call this slide the old-fashioned security, and some of the bits here haven't even hit yet. So NFC, for example, so it's maybe unfair to call this old-fashioned. But in the years that I've been and we've been active in the industry, we've worked a lot with physical security in various shapes or forms. ATMs, point of sales terminals, hardware tokens, card readers, PIN mailers, and it still forms a big part of the Verisec operation. But something seems to be changing in the industry very fast, and we need to deal with it. So let's look at what that landscape looks like. So one of the big so-called megatrends today is the mobile megatrend. And these are some of the statistics about mobile behavior. So one of the things is that almost all consumers say they want to be able to consume content anywhere, and they want to consume it on whatever device they have. And they want the experience to be seamless when they move between different types of devices and channels. And the device that seems to be winning this race, of course, is the mobile device. So that's kind of the fundamental here. One of the interesting things that I've seen is that the behavior of people seems to be changing when it comes to how willing they are to expose their information and information about themselves on the internet. So my kids, for example, they've been insisting to download an application called Periscope onto their mobile devices. And it basically allows any pervert in the world to know where they are at any point in time, and of course all of their friends as well. But it's something they don't seem to find a problem, but any grown-up or any parent today will find it an issue that your kids can be traced and followed wherever they are. But this seems to be something that young people are perfectly comfortable doing. So we want to be mobile, we want to offer mobile services, and obviously a key to that is to operate in a market that has a high mobile and smartphone penetration. So this is just some background information on the Nordics. We have a real penetration of smartphone and mobile, which is close to 100%. The interesting thing here is the second point, actually, which is that almost 50% of media consumption in the world today is through this type of device. So almost 50% of all media consumed today, which includes TV and print and everything. So that's a huge number. And if you look at some figures that came out a number of years ago, they're not new. Between 2004 and 2009, the consumption of media itself increased by an hour 15 minutes to what is now over 8 hours of media consumption, of which 4 hours is on this type of device. So it's pretty massive. So you can understand that everyone wants to be on that device and get a fraction of your attention through that little window because they actually spend 4 hours a day consuming media on it. However, mobile is vulnerable. Now, there are lots of reports, and we can provide you with all these materials, reports from OWASP and others, that basically list the top 5 or the top 10 mobile vulnerabilities today. But it seems to be all pervasive. So everyone who is building mobile solutions today seems to live in this environment where some of the design, some of the problem is in the design. So you have things like bad storage practices. Some of it is technology itself. You lack encryption on the device. You lack encryption in the wireless connectivity. You have lots of issues there, and this is a problem that I'm going to skip to this slide, that we seem to have to educate the market on. So we spend a lot of time talking to banks, talking even to central banks around the world, doing reports for entire markets to explain, to test the security of their applications and to demonstrate that they are fundamentally vulnerable. So this is an issue that we have, that there's a disconnect between the impression people have of the security that's built into their mobile systems and what is actually in place. So there's a big issue there. And the previous slide basically just shows that the bad guys, they're not sleeping. They're actively attacking. The impact of cybercrime is increasing for every year now. It's I don't know, Johan, if that figure was 500 billion in the latest report, but yeah. So it's increasing for every year. But it's not just about technology. Because, as I mentioned in this first slide, it's also about user behavior. And some of the disruptive technologies we're seeing now are a part in that culture of changing user behavior. So this example came up earlier. It's a really cool service that allows you to connect to your banks and credit card companies. It collects your transactional data. It shows it to you in a consolidated way, so you get a good overview of your financial situation. But the only problem is that you're asked to share your banking credentials for all those banks, all those credit card companies, with this company. So social security numbers in Sweden, usernames, passwords, etc. That's something you have to trust them with that information. Traditionally, the banks, they've said, don't share this with anyone. But if you want to use this type of service, then you need to do so. So that's changing the behavior and people's understanding of how they should handle their security credentials. And this is another example, Trustly. It's a good, it's a great service which you can build into your mobile services, your web services, to initiate payments from and to people's bank accounts. But they act kind of like a man in the middle, which is, a bad word in the security industry. They initiate payments. They again require that you share your security credentials. So now these guys may be the good apples, but then you get a bad apple that comes along, and how will you know that this time you shouldn't share your credentials with them if you've been doing so with these guys? So that's changing the whole industry the way I see it. Another big mega trend in IT is cloud, and you'll be happy to see that the cloud is still on the rise. The average large enterprise has 6 clouds, 3 more on the private side, 3 more on the clouds on the public side. Hybrid is growing the most. So that's all good, but cloud is not problem-free either. So you have something called the Safe Harbor System, which is basically initiated by the US Department of Commerce and the European Commission. It was there to protect European citizen private data and to regulate transfers of that data to and from the US. And that system has been invalidated now by the Court of Justice of the European Union. So there's a bit of confusion right now as to how you can store data in a secure way to protect European citizens' private information. So that's another area of a little bit of uncertainty right now. So what does the regulator say about all this? Well, PSD2 has been mentioned. Now, one of the problems is that they want to force banks to open, as Johan said before, to open their systems to people like Tink and Trustly and others, disruptive new tech providers. But at the same time, it puts a massive burden on organizations to secure their systems and to provide strong authentication. And yet, as we saw, those security best practices are not going to be driven by these new entrants, the new disruptive companies. So this is an issue. And it's not as if the regulator is not in a rush. They're in a huge rush to do something. Because of the levels of fraud in Europe, the European Banking Authority couldn't even wait for PSD2 to come. They had to create guidelines in the meantime that people are obliged to follow. They're called guidelines, but they're mandatory, so don't get confused by the name. A delay in implementation of the guidelines is not a plausible option. We need to do something. So they're in a rush. You have the new data protection regulation in Europe, which says that basically any information relating to someone that you can identify, a natural person, is personal data, and you need to protect it. And the teeth of this regulation is something completely different than what it was before. So now the fines for data breach can reach 4% of your global turnover, or 20 million euro, whichever is higher. And you have strict notification requirements if something goes wrong. So you need to tell not only the regulator, but the citizens that we're in breach and you should know about it, which can cause severe reputational damage. So there are some issues there. Now, so we have weak mobile platforms, a potentially unsafe cloud, we have challenging user behavior, and we have a slightly schizophrenic regulator who is telling us one thing and then another thing at the same time. So this is a challenging time to operate in. And the way we have approached this new market is, unsurprisingly, that we need to go mobile like everyone else, but we need to be able to secure that platform much better than what a lot of organizations are doing today. So we put a lot of effort into securing mobile, securing cloud. We're doing that with some patent pending technologies that we've developed on key management around encryption of data. We're working with partners who are here today, like Thales and Acertia, on providing state-of-the-art security solutions. And one of the results of all that work is our mobile SDK, which essentially can protect any application, and it protects all of our mobile application that we're churning out. So a hygiene factor, before we can start using our device for things like banking or payment or handling personal data, is to be able to protect against the vulnerabilities that are there. So that's all in there. So we've built that into the SDK. We've spent years perfecting this, and we wouldn't recommend anyone to try to set out doing this afresh if you're doing that now. And for us, it's about today it's about deploying accessible security. We're not able anymore to deploy the type of security that was all based on separate hardware devices and similar. Everything needs to be mobile, and it should be super simple to use. And the way we've approached it is that we need to work with things like layered security. So very user-friendly authentication, which could be biometric authentication to log in to see your account status, for example, with a bank, and then to ramp it up as you get into the bigger transactions, riskier transactions, if you're coming from source IPs that are in strange or unusual locations. And to build it around software security in the front end, because we've seen that all the attempts to build solutions on the SIM card security or on secure elements for now is not taking off. It's proving to be a little too slow right now. We'd love to be able to work with that technology when it's ubiquitous, but right now we need to work with the security that's available in software with its limitations. But if you build on top of that this layered security model with risk-based authentication and so on, that's the strength of it. In the back end, we use hardware security from our friends at Thales, which is, by the way, GDPR heaven. So if you're working with GDPR, we can send you white papers and information about this, but the whole regulation is kind of written around encryption. So if you encrypt, then basically what's happening is that if you lose data, it's not considered data loss. That's the basic thing you should take with you from that. You encrypt data in a good way, good solid way. Then it's not going to be considered as data loss if you do lose it, which also means that you don't need to go out to the whole world and tell people that you've lost it, which is one of the things that many of our customers are a bit scared about. So the value that all of this brings, once we've been able to secure this platform, once we've been able to protect against vulnerabilities, and allow for features like strong encryption on the device, strong encryption on communication, strong identity, is that you get trust in this digital device. It becomes your one key for accessing many different services. It provides strong user identity across all channels, for example, in a bank, a true omni-channel solution. And we have some case studies with banks where we actually use it as an omni-channel solution to access every single channel that bank has, from telephone banking to online mobile banking, etc. But you can start using your device for things like transaction signing, for digital signing of legally binding documents as well, which is, something that a lot of people think is easy, even in Sweden with the bank ID solution, but it's actually quite tricky stuff to do. So please come to us and talk to us about this, and we're working with people like Asertia on providing this as a completely mobile, user-friendly solution, but that meets all the regulatory frameworks like eIDAS and similar. And it provides true data privacy, which means that if you're protecting personal data on behalf of your customers and European citizens, then one of the requirements in GDPR is that you build everything with security by design in the solution. If you don't secure the data on this device and it leaks, then that's just as much a breach as any other breach. It's not just infrastructure and databases, it's also protecting the front end and the mobile solution, which is not very commonplace today. And with that, and I promised you a film, we're in good time here. This is, so I'll give you a background to this film. This is, I am the sales guy, so this is a sales pitch, and this presentation up to now maybe hasn't been as salesy, but this is an example from a pretend bank that we've built. It's called Bank 42, so it's not real and it's not generating any money for me, but it's a demo bank that's good for showing customers the potential of the solution, and it is for banks. We have similar material for all other verticals and industries, so if you're interested in seeing how this technology can apply to a vertical other than banking, we're happy to show you. But here it goes.
A recent study showed that we are within 1 meter of our mobile phone 94% of our time. And it is no news that the mobile has changed how we live, from how we socialize, consume entertainment, shop, and even find our life partner. And for banks, the mobile revolution is even more important than for other companies. The number of customer interactions skyrockets when the bank offers a user-friendly experience and the customer is never further away from the bank than the mobile. However, if you have the right infrastructure for digital identities and an integrated ID function in your banking app, you open up a range of possibilities for new services and business opportunities. This is the story of how Freo Mobile can be integrated in your online and mobile banking solutions. To illustrate the different scenarios, we'll show examples from a bank we call Bank 42. By integrating Freo Mobile Core SDK, you're in control of the user experience and the branding of your application. The possibilities the system offers are many. With Freo Mobile, you transform your banking application to the only key the customer needs to interact with the bank, regardless of channel. And the lower the threshold, the greater the customer engagement. Freo Mobile turns the mobile into a secure communication platform, protected by Verisec's patent-pending technology for encrypted messages in separate channels. Say goodbye to PIN envelopes and other paper-based ways of communicating with your customers. When you control the infrastructure for identities, you also have full control of the security. This means that you can choose what methods for logging in and signing you want to offer. If you want to use PIN codes, you can choose how many digits in the code. Or your customer perhaps prefers an alphanumeric password. Why not let them log in using symbols that are easy to remember? You can also add geolocation and biometrical factors to the identification. Why not offer your customers selfie login using face recognition? Of course, you can also combine different methods for increased security and convenience. To increase your customer security when shopping online, you can add 3D Secure directly in your banking app. Also, using Freya Mobile for 3D Secure makes you compliant with the new regulations for internet payments. When the time comes to offer your customers contactless payments with the mobile, you already have the infrastructure in place with Freya Mobile. With our technology, you can also offer parents to approve their children's purchases from a distance. The 3D Secure function is then connected to the parent's mobile banking app, and they will enjoy full control over their children's purchases. Freya Mobile also offers the possibility for users to sign documents using their mobile with qualified digital signatures. The number of paper-based processes that could be digitalized and made user convenient is huge, not to mention the possible cost savings. By integrating Freya Mobile Core SDK, you take a giant leap away from what most other banks offer around the online and mobile experience. The Freya technology is used as the security infrastructure for some of the world's largest banks and combines security and user convenience in an unprecedented way. With Freya Mobile, you'll be able to add unique features and new services that brings your customer interaction through the roof and leaves your competitors far behind. Freya Mobile, the next step in the mobile revolution.
Yes. So granted, that was very salesy. Let me just finish off by saying thank you. And if you've seen some materials here, some references to source materials, the presentation itself. If you want that material, just make a note in your forms and we'll send it to you, or we'll make it available to you. And any questions, I'll be available, and the sales team, to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much.